welcome to the Abiding CEO podcast, where faith meets business. I'm your host, Betsy Mejias, trauma therapist and business coach, and I am here with Micah from Dream Support. Hi, Micah. How are you?
Hey, Betsy, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So, a little background from what I understand is you own Dream Support, which is obviously where I get my support from because my executive assistant, Megan, works for you. Tell the audience a little bit about Dream Support.
Yeah, so Dream Sport, it's a simple concept, right? In that we provide remote fractional, right? So it's not like full-time, usually there's that occasion, but remote fractional executive assistance to busy leaders in
Mhm.
just about all the niches and industries you could think of. Anywhere where there's a busy person that really can't get everything they need to get done and also grow. Usually they've hit some sort of a lid. We can come in
Mhm.
and provide some executive assistant support.
Okay. What has been the most unique niche or business that you have helped?
Oh man, there's a couple. I was just before we started recording, I was telling you about a gentleman who started a boutique soda company.
Mhm.
He got inspired. He went to Hawaii. He tasted one from somebody, and then he came back home. He lives in San Diego, and he was like, "Man, I want to do this here. I want to create this unique local soda brand." So that's really interesting. Swell Soda, if you're interested. And then private airline. So that's another one. So
Yeah.
serial entrepreneurs that are just starting stuff and sort of exiting or selling it and then moving on to the next thing. There's a lot of stuff.
That sounds kind of familiar. Now, it's my understanding also, and I didn't want to dig into the story off air just so that I would be hearing it for the first time as everyone else is hearing it. You mentioned that you were a pastor who transitioned into business. So
That's right.
take us
That's right.
there.
Well, so I worked in a bunch of churches, planted the last church I worked in, and I wasn't intending on starting a business. But when you plant a church and you start a church, like you're sort of capping your income potential for your family and future at a certain level unless you grow rapidly. And we weren't growing rapidly. We were growing very steadily, but slow and small. And then the pandemic hit. And during the pandemic, our opportunities being in California were limited in terms of where we could do things and how much we could meet in person and all that kind of stuff. And we weren't the kind of place that was going to be just trying to fight the system all the time and try to work around that in that way. So we transitioned to online, and I knew how to do that pretty easily. But then the longer it went on, it was like, man, in order for us to go back into person, we're gonna have to replant this thing, because we're essentially sort of telling our volunteers in that time frame, we don't need a lot from you right now, and we can't provide a lot of community opportunities. And so it's kind of a weird space to be in. But when we did have the opportunity, like things were sort of opening back up and we had to make a decision. Before the pandemic, I started this company with my wife, Dream Sport, as a side hustle just to create some extra income. And it was really based on demand that was coming towards her because she is a remote executive assistant. She's been working with the same gentleman for 12 years now, going on 12 years now. He's in St.
Mhm.
Louis and we're in California. They never met in person. So the demand was coming in for her time, but she couldn't give it anymore. So we created this agency in order to fulfill those demands. So it's a very side thing. And then it was like God built this bridge with this business to where I didn't have to worry about if we shift, if we close the church, if we shift our focus away from the ministry, from that particular ministry, where's our income going to come from? I didn't have to worry about that because at the same time that was sort of winding down, the business was building up. So he built a bridge that really helped us make that not about finances. So when you remove that financial aspect out of that decision, you can do it with greater clarity
Mhm.
because you're not worried about that part.
Mhm.
So eventually we did decide, our board bet, we decided, listen, it's been a great season. We do have people and we do have resources that we want to pass on to another ministry. So we had to identify who would be that place. And I built a relationship with another local church and pastor that I just essentially went to coffee with them and said, hey, listen, here's what we're doing. Would you have us as volunteers? Like, could we just come be reinforcements for you and integrate into your church? You don't have to tell anybody this is what's happening. We don't need a mention. This isn't like a merger. This is just like, hey, we want to bring whoever will come with us and all the resources that we have in the storehouse and just give it to you and be reinforcement for you and whatever you need. He was like, sounds too good to be true. And in most cases, I would say, yes, it does. It sounds like there's got to be a catch somewhere, but there really wasn't, because we had this business built up. It's not like I was looking for a job. I wasn't trying to backdoor anything. So we had the ability, and I was able to just, me with a couple other the board members were able just to hand over a big old check and all those sorts of things and bring people with us. And it's been a really fun transition, actually.
Nice. I can totally see how it's a blessing, but it sounds like a scam. Like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
you can have all of this because I'm closing,
Hey,
and you don't
way
want anything in
too
return. No.
Yeah. It wasn't like we had a building or something, like we were renting. We just had like a trailer full of equipment. They didn't really need it. So we sold it to another church and then gave them the money, because as a nonprofit, someone asked me this the other day. They were like, so did you get a good exit from that? Like, I'm like, no, there's no payment to me as a nonprofit. Whatever has been donated and whatever's in the bank and whatever you have to liquidate
Yeah.
and give it to another like-minded nonprofit. Like, that's the law. And if you don't do that, then you're like embezzling. So,
Interesting.
it's not like there's any extra incentive to sell the business, because there's no business to sell. It's a people and a movement, and you're just trying to steward that and guide them into the best next season.
So you opened up a way for someone else.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It reminds me when I left corporate, because I left the leadership position, then it opened up the position for another social worker to step in. And that made me feel a lot better, knowing that like my team wasn't going to be left hanging and that there was someone else there for them.
Exactly. You don't want to drop. So I made a personal call to everybody in the church and told them, this is what's going on. Here's the plan. And tried to help people figure out, okay, were they going to come with us? Or was there another local church that they could go to, that family would, like, where were they going to end up? And so we tried as best possible to make sure everyone had a place to go, that they would plug in somewhere, because I really didn't want anybody just to be sort of like, I'm not going to do anything. That was like the worst thing. So
there's so many lessons to draw just from that piece you shared, this idea of stewarding, shepherding, and then clear communication to avoid any gossips or story. It's like, no, this is what happened and this is where it's going.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no way you're gonna avoid all miscommunication or anything, but you do your best. You do everything you can to ensure that it's a smooth transition for as many people as possible, and you just do what you feel is right. And what I felt like that was the right decision at that time. I felt like planting the church, starting it, was the right decision. And then it's just transition, just different.
Yep. A new season. You used the word particular ministry, and the way you used it, at least I'm deducing that you view dream support as a way of ministering and serving your clients.
Oh yeah.
Tell me how you Yeah, I thought I was reading that in between the lines. Tell me how you support and minister to your clients.
Well, there's different levels of this, right? So life, if you're a Jesus follower, life is ministry. So every little aspect, when I volunteer at the kids' school, it's ministry. When I interact with my family, it's ministry. When I do whatever it is, it's ministry. So inside the business, there's sort of a multifaceted thing. So as our business serves clients like yourself, what that enables you to do is minister in your business to more people, because you're focused less on the administrative stuff. So I think it's funny that ministry and administration are so similar in their work. And it administration is sort of it's not a fun word. Like, people don't go, oh, I just want to do administrate. I want to go play with documents and, make sure that the right information is in the CRM. And, like people don't wake up in the morning doing that, except for the people that love to be administrators or executive assistants. Like they actually genuinely love that stuff. So what we do is we find those people and then we pair them with our clients personally to try to match those special needs or skill sets as best as possible. And then when those work really well, it enables the client to do way more in their life, with their
Mhm.
family, in their business, whatever it is. That's tier one. Tier two is also being a support to all the assistants. So we have a private community that we utilize Slack for this, where they can get support, they can hive brain, they can, sort of understand trends and how are other businesses doing this, and we're looking at doing this, and what are the best things for this or that, or what's a new platform? Has anybody messed with it? Can you show me around? Just that is really big because there's ongoing training, but there's also there's a channel in there called prayer and scripture. So if you need prayer or you want to share a scripture that you read, and not everybody who works with us as clients or as assistants are Christian, but that's a part of sort of just like, it's just part of
Yeah.
me. It's part of what we have going on, and they're not required to participate in that. But we do try to match if we have a Christian client who is part of their business is sort of being faith-based, we do
Mhm.
match those personalities and belief systems up so that that's not
Yeah.
a conflict of interest or weird for either party. So that's a couple of the ways that, I believe it's a ministry. We're also providing opportunities for people to make extra income and things of that nature. So
Mhm.
there's just a ton of different ways that I feel like it benefits people.
I really appreciated the way you did the onboarding. And if you want to elaborate, go ahead. But the whole, you can meet several ones and see if it's a good fit. And it's not the fastest, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're thinking long term, you need someone that you trust. And I
Yeah.
remember when I met Megan, just the level of excitement and joy, and like, oh, wow, she's a really good fit for me. How did you come up with, well, first explain it in case I
Sure.
didn't explain it right. And then how did you even come up with that process?
Yeah, that's good. So the process is pretty simple. After we've had a discovery call with a potential client, I'm trying to learn their needs. What are the specific kinds of things they need? What's the personality of this person? Who would best fit this scenario? Then I'm looking at the people that we already work with who still have capacity. Is there someone in that group? That's priority one for me. Priority two, if I don't have the right person in there, going to this available pool. So I've already pre-vetted people that are in this available pool that we keep fresh. We're always checking in and seeing if anything has changed and things like that. And if they're not in there, then we will go ahead and we will do a search. And a search is primarily, not exclusively, but primarily a LinkedIn posting that gets, I'm not kidding, it'll get 1,000 applicants. And I have an assistant that helps me sort through that pretty quickly. We have a system for that, but we'll do a test, we'll do interviews, we'll do background checks, all that kind of stuff, and then I'll approve some for the pool, and then I'll see if one of those fits the bill. And if so, then I'll arrange a group Zoom where the three of us can sit down. All parties can ask all the questions they want after the call. Rarely on the call. I always tell them, don't feel pressured to say yes or no on the call. But after the call, I want to get your feedback. And if all parties want to move forward, then we move forward with agreements and kickoff dates, which I help facilitate. If anybody says this doesn't feel right, no problem. Back to the pool. Who else did I miss somebody? Is there a better opportunity here? What are the adjustments you're looking for? So it's a very boutique approach. It's not a mass apply approach in terms of next warm body.
Mhm.
And the reason, and you asked, the second part of your question was,
How'd you came
um,
up with that?
how'd you come up with that? So because I have worked with a virtual company before in supporting me in very specific ways, I had been the victim of this. Here's your person. And then, okay, cool. I'm trusting you to have the right person. I don't have a say. This is the person. Cool. Cool. Let's start working. And then 2 months later, just an email that says, here's your new person. Wait, what? What do you mean? Here's your new person. What happened to the other person?
Yeah.
And I just I didn't like how that felt. I didn't like how I didn't have the opportunity to meet the person and establish if I feel like I could trust them, at least ask a few questions. I appreciated the fact that they funneled, from all the millions of possible people to someone, but
Mhm.
I didn't have an opportunity to say yes or no because I had to say yes or no before that, and I had to pay up front. We
Yeah.
don't, we don't like ask for money until we kick off. Like someone could meet three people, say, never mind, I'm not interested. And they've never paid us a dime.
Yep.
And I know that could really come back to bite me, but it hasn't. So,
Yes.
so I just keep moving forward with that.
Because you're doing right by people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like if we focus on those sorts of things and make sure it's a really good experience and make sure even if someone says no, this doesn't feel right, well, we have saved them heartache and trouble from having the wrong person. And I'm like, okay, let us have an opportunity to present you with another option. We would love that opportunity. So yeah, it works out.
Another thing that I'm thinking people might be wondering, well, what's the difference between a virtual assistant, a VA, and an EA, an executive assistant? Can you elaborate on that?
So the primary difference is going to be the depth of their involvement within the business or
Mhm.
venture or whatever it is, or the ministry. We support nonprofits and pastors as well. That's going to be a huge thing, is access. So executive assistants are probably going to have a lot more access. So they could have access to banking accounts if you let them have that.
Mhm.
They could have access to clients and direct client relationships and those sorts of things. So they're a lot more closer to the chest and trust. They have a bigger picture of what's going on altogether. A virtual assistant is more like, a lot of times people ask me this too, like, we're US based. So we supply US based executive assistants.
Okay.
Virtual assistants is already in people's minds a foreign thing. So it's offshore, it's somewhere else. Somebody's burning the midnight oil, but they're getting a good living, and I'm paying a lot less because they're not in the US. That's sort of
Mhm.
the dream for people, right? And I know people
Yeah.
make that work. I know they do. But I
Mhm.
also know they churn through people a lot more, and it's really, really hard to find that right person. I know there are services out there for that. I get it. And people are successful. Totally get that. And
Mhm.
I think that's good for certain things. If you just need one kind of thing, if you just need marketing help, or you just need someone doing this one thing,
Mhm.
by all means, like, go go for it. And if you want a recommendation, talk to me. I have at least one person I can recommend you to that I think is good. But if you're looking for more than that, if you're looking for someone to be integrated more, have their hands in multiple things, and really be like a right hand to you, you're looking more for an executive assistant.
Yeah. Well, that's actually the setup I have. I do have one person that I trust, and she's actually going to come on and talk, and they're out in the Philippines. So
Yeah.
we communicate mostly electronically, and I use
Yeah.
for social media editing, those kind of things. But then Megan, since she knows me, well, the executive assistant for those who don't know, knows me, knows my voice, understands the vision. When she's
Mm.
looking at social media posts, and that she knows, oh, Betsy's not going to like that one, or
Yeah.
tweak this, tweak that. And if there's anything that's questionable, she'll save it for our weekly check-in. And it's almost like she helps me with quality control, because you don't want
Yep.
to send mixed messages out there. You want to be consistent in how you come across. And sometimes someone who maybe isn't in the area or has spent that much one-on-one time with you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's really great to have give an extra layer. So you utilize someone with a specialty somewhere at a
Mhm.
great price point, I'm sure, who does a certain specialty work for you, and then you have someone else, so that you're not always
Yeah.
the the lid or the funnel tip
Yeah.
that has to go through. Have somebody
Yeah.
else who's kind of going, okay, okay, yeah, that's good, that's good. Wait a
Mhm.
second, I know this one's not going to be right. I just saw this on Twitter the other day, or X, whatever it's called these days. There was a
Yeah.
guy he's a huge, like, you should use Filipino VAs for everything. Like, that's his whole
Mm.
shtick. and he was writing about the worst or best, I can't remember, states for taxes as an entrepreneur or something. And he had a graphic. So he had a list of states and then a graphic where those states were lit up. And I was like, I know that he used one of his VAs to do this whole thing. He didn't write any of this. He didn't make the graphic. I know that. The reason I know that is because in the list, it listed Arizona, but on the map, it highlighted Alabama. And I
Uh,
knew he
uh,
would not make that mistake. But his virtual assistant somewhere else I mean, she just saw was like, oh, here we go. That must be it. And very quickly made that. And then he got roasted in the comments because
but
everyone's like, how do you mix those up? Just like, I'm like, I know I mixed them
yeah,
up. And
yeah,
if he just had that extra layer, because he's so busy, he can't look at everything they do. Like if he just had that extra layer of quality
yeah.
control, he could have avoided that.
Yeah. And I've thought about it, but again, quality control. I don't want a post that's either totally left field or just does not match
Yeah.
me. So, and then the beauty of being able to ask for a personal help or
Yeah.
errand or find me this. And at
Yeah.
first it was like, can I ask you to do this? She's like, yeah, sure. And it's, I love it. If anything, maybe down the road, I'll increase hours, but now I don't see myself going back to not having an EA. Like
Yeah.
I should have done it sooner.
Yeah. And the
So,
beautiful part of it too is like, people get a little like, but if I get someone so integrated and I hand off all this stuff, and then what if something changes? What if they can't do it anymore? Or what if, what
mhm,
if, what if, what if? But that would be true with any job, anywhere. And the beautiful thing about it is you could have them build out the SOPs, the standard operating procedures along the
yeah,
way. And then if there ever needed to be a change that was foreseeable, like if they were like,
yeah,
in 2 months, my life is going to drastically change. We're moving and I won't have time for whatever. You could say, hey, Micah, or the assistant could say, hey, Micah, like this is what's going on. And then I can find the new match while they're still working. They can have an overlap where there's a training period and hand it off so that it's not like a dead stop,
mhm.
you know. And I have done that. So that's also a benefit of utilizing someone like Dream Support rather than just going and trying to find your own person.
No, no, it's been a great experience. And lastly, just to kind of wrap up, because we could probably keep going.
Sure.
What advice do you have? Well, and especially whatever you have to say, because you're around a lot of CEOs and leaders, and you get that visionary, goal-oriented personality. You guys interact with that a lot. But what advice do you have to just get them reconnected to the vine, to get them abiding in
Mhm.
Christ again? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think just having perspective on what the most important things are in life,
Mhm,
um, because it's so easy to chase and chase and chase the next goal and chase the next quarter and try to build and grow and do all these things. And if you're driven, like you will focus in on that and you will go hard on that to the detriment of relationships around you. But at the end of your working career, whatever that looks like, you're not going to have work. You're going to have the relationships, and you
mhm,
want to maintain those. So your relationship with God, your relationship with your family, your kids or your parents, if you're fortunate to have them, or grandparents, those are really, really important. So those close relationships, you want to make sure you're doing that well. So for me, what that looks like for me is like, and again, like as a business owner, I have more flexibility, but I have just made it a commitment. Like if I get a paper or a text or some sort of thing from a teacher that says we need a volunteer for this, or we need chaperones for that, I'm like, if my schedule is clear or I can move it, sign me up. I'm in. Let's go. So I go on as many trips as I possibly can, picking up and dropping off as much as I can, which is a lot of days a week. So just being actively involved. And then I also like last week I wasn't feeling great, and so my productivity was lower anyways, and I knew that. And so when my kids got home from school, instead of like pushing through for another couple extra hours, I was just like, I'm done for the day. let's play some ping pong, let's hang out, you know. So I think having those, giving yourself permission to not just run full force, but also like breathe, have rest, remind yourself like in 20 years, I'm going to look back and wish that I had done this more. I'm trying to live in that kind of present moment.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Well, Micah, thank you so much for coming on. And we really appreciate all the advice, the feedback, and just letting us see behind the scenes and wish you all the best.
Yeah. Thanks, Betsy. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.